Hi kids, welcome to this revision video. In this revision video, we will be covering the other two dynasties of North India. Now, if you go to my first video, in that we have already covered the Mauryan dynasty. Okay, and in this video, we will be covering the Kushana dynasty and the Gupta dynasty. Okay, um, let me actually just quickly share my screen. And in this, we will see if you actually look at the historical timeline as a part of the summary sheet that I have given you, okay, we have actually covered up until this point, okay, the red line where Ashoka had died. Now, after Ashoka had died, we are going to actually leave India. Now, I'm going to share my screen and go back to my whiteboard. Okay, so if you actually look at, okay, one second, that's an extremely bad drawing. One second. Okay, I'm just going to work with this for now because we're not even talking about India. Okay, so the Mauryan Empire was approximately this big. It covered this red area of India. Okay, but right now we are not going to be talking about India. We're going to be talking about China. Okay, so in China, there was one clan called the Yuji clan. Okay, now this Yuji clan, when they were in China, they were forced out of China. Okay. There was another clan called the Xiongnu clan. The Xiongnu clan defeated the Yuji clan. So the Yuji, they went from China all the way till Afghanistan. Okay. So the Yuji, they went from China all the way to Afghanistan. And this is where the Yuji actually started their territory. Okay. Now, the UG is something that will later we will come to know is actually the Kushana clan. Okay. Now, if you see in the UG, after they went to Afghanistan, they had actually conquered a big part of land. Okay. Now, imagine this was the entire UG territory. Okay. Now, in this entire UG territory, all the territory was divided among five kings. Okay. All the territory was divided under five people. Okay. The five kings. One day, one of the kings decided to betray all the other four kings. So, what did he do? He killed all the other four kings and he took the entire land under himself. Okay, and that was Kujula Catfasis. Okay, Kujula Catfasis killed all the other four kings and he took over the entire area. Now, Kujula Catfasis was from the Kushana tribe, and this is actually how the Kushana dynasty began. Okay, so the Kushana dynasty actually came from the Yuji. Yuji was from China. Okay, from China they went all the way to Afghanistan. Okay, in Afghanistan there were five kings from the Yuji. One of the kings, that was Kujula Catfices, killed all the other four kings, and that is how the Kushana dynasty began. Okay. Let me actually stop sharing. Okay, and let's go back to our summary sheet and discuss whatever is relevant for our portion now. Okay, whatever I explained to you is just a little bit, very, very small hint of how the Kushana dynasty began. Okay, but that is not covered in our textbook. Okay, what is covered in our textbook is only about the king Kanishka. Okay, only about King Kanishka is something that is discussed in our textbook. So we will stick to what is discussed in our textbook. Okay. If you look at the historical timeline, the Kushana Empire began in 130 BCE. That's the first point. The Kushana Empire began in 130 BCE. The Kushana dynasty extended from Gandhara to Bihar. Okay. Whenever I use the word extended, it says that it is from this place to this place. Okay. So the Kushana dynasty was from Gandhara. Gandhara is basically Afghanistan to Bihar. Okay. And Kanishka is one of the most famous rulers under the Kushana dynasty. These are the first 3 points and the 3 basic points about the Kushana dynasty. Okay. Now let's learn a little bit about Kanishka. Now Kanishka, just like Ashoka, he was also a follower of Buddhism. Okay. Kanishka held the fourth Buddhist conference. If you remember in my Mauryan dynasty video, I have discussed how Ashoka held the third Buddhist conference at Patliputra. That's where Ashoka held the third Buddhist conference. But Kanishka held the fourth Buddhist conference in Jammu and Kashmir. Okay. There is a difference, and you will have to remember this difference. Okay. So let's look at the first 2 points under Kanishka. He was a follower of Buddhism just like Ashoka, and he held the fourth Buddhist conference in Jammu and Kashmir. He created the Shaka calendar. Now, see, the Shaka calendar is basically a calendar in another language. Okay. And this was like a, how do I explain this? This was like a calendar used in those earlier times by all the other different religions that were present then. Okay. So this Shaka calendar was used back then. And you have to remember that it is used even today. Even the government of India today uses the Shaka calendar. Okay. So this is something you will have to remember. He created the Shaka calendar, which is used by the government of India even today. Okay. There are few things you'll have to remember under Kanishka. You'll have to remember the architecture under Kanishka and the literature under Kanishka. So I have done one thing. I have put them in clear points for you in the summary sheet. Okay. So architecture is what? It's basically for you all, I would say, remember buildings. Okay. Remember buildings and some things that are built under Kanishka. Okay. So built the stupa in Purushapura. Now you have to remember how high the stupa is. The Purushapura stupa is 400 feet high. Okay. He built a city called Kanishkapura. Okay. He built a city called Kanishkapura. He was the first king to make gold coins in India. Now don't get confused with the Gupta period. In the Gupta period also there were gold coins, but who was the first king to make gold coins? It was Kanishka. Okay. So he's done 4 things. Okay. Built the stupa in Purushapura, built the city of Kanishkapura. Okay. First king to ever make gold coins in India. And the last thing, there were 2 styles of art. Okay. There were 2 styles of art. First one was called Gandhara, and the second one was called Mathura. Okay. And both of these things started under Kanishka. The art styles of Gandhara and Mathura started under Kanishka. Okay. And this is something you might have to remember either in a 2-mark question. Okay. I could say, what are the different things that we learned about architecture under Kanishka? You might have to give all 4 points, or I could ask you in fill in the blanks or in multiple choice question. Okay. That's possible. The last thing you will have to learn under the Kushana dynasty, and I know that we are not covering a lot of different things about, the Yuji, Kajula Catfices. We're not covering all those things because it's not given in our textbook. So we will stick to what is given in our textbook. Okay. Literature under Kanishka. Literature means writing. Okay. Keep this in mind. Just like I said, architecture is basically anything that is built. Okay. Something that is made. Okay. Literature is anything that is written. Okay. There were 4 important scholars under Kanishka. 4. And you will have to remember all of their names. And I think one of them, yes, Ashwagosha has written a book called Buddha Charita. So the first one is Ashwagosha. And you'll have to remember the name of the book that Ashwagosha has written. The name of the book was Buddha Charita. Okay. The other 3 scholars are Nagarjuna, Vasumitra, and Charaka. Okay. It could come in a very simple 2-mark question. Name any 4 important scholars under Kanishka. You'll have to give all 4 names. What you will have to do under this is that you will have to give the correct spelling. Your spellings is something that I will deduct marks for. So please keep this in mind. Okay. Okay. Now, I have not delved much. I've not delved much into how the Kushana dynasty began and how it ended. Okay. We are not going to be discussing that in detail in this revision video. Okay, if there is something that you want to understand about each of these dynasties, I will give you a separate video. Okay, and in that video you can understand everything about the dynasty, but in this video we will stick to our portion and we will stick to our revision. Okay, now let's very quickly come to our Gupta dynasty. Okay, now under the Gupta dynasty, again, in our textbook we have not discussed how the Gupta dynasty actually fully began. Okay, we have only discussed the two most famous rulers. Okay, and we will understand that. Now let's look at the first point. Okay, let's actually quickly go to the historical timeline. Now if you look at the historical timeline, we have completed this now. The Kushana dynasty began in 130 BC and the Kushana Empire ended in 230 270 CE. Please don't get confused here. Okay, BCE is before Common Era. Okay, so the Kushana Empire actually began in BCE. Okay, and when did it end? It did not end in 270 BCE. It ended in 270 CE. Okay, that is in the Common Era. Okay, don't get confused about that. All right, let's just quickly discuss about Gupta dynasty as well, since we are already here. Okay, the Gupta dynasty began in 300 CE after the Kushan Empire ended. Okay, and the Gupta dynasty ended in 550 CE. Now, I understand that this video will not give you details about how it began and ended. Okay, the only reason is that I don't want to do all of that in this revision video, because let's focus on our exam through this video. Okay, now the Gupta Empire began in 300 CE. That's the first point that we are looking at. The capital of the Gupta Empire was Pataliputra. Okay, and the capital of the Mauryan Empire also was Pataliputra. Okay, so just remember that much. The capital of the Mauryan Empire also was Pataliputra. The capital of the Gupta Empire also was Pataliputra. Okay, Samudragupta and Chandragupta II. Okay, so these were the two kings that I was talking about. Samudragupta and Chandragupta II are the two most famous rulers under the Gupta dynasty. This is all that we will cover in our portion today. Okay, let's talk a little bit about Samudragupta. Samudragupta defeated 9 kings in North India and 12 kings in South India. Okay, now you need to remember that because of all the defeats and all the wars that Samudragupta had won, there was a person called Harisena. Okay, Harisena wrote about Samudragupta and all his victories. He wrote it on what? He wrote it on a pillar. Okay, there's a pillar, and he has wrote it on the pillar. Basically, it is carved onto the pillar. Okay, Harisena wrote about his victories on the Allahabad pillar. That's what the second point is. He was given the title. He was given means Samudragupta was given the title of Kavi Raja because he also was interested in music and in poetry. Okay, so Samudragupta was given the title of Kavi Raja. Okay, and the last point, he performed the ritual of Ashwamedha Yaga. Okay, if you remember, I had told you about a horse. Okay, so basically, now say for example, when Samudragupta was the king, okay, a horse was sent along with the warriors of the king. Okay, this horse and the warriors were sent all over the country. Okay, and anybody can challenge the people. Okay, anybody can challenge the warriors. Okay, now say for example, the warrior and the horse is going. Okay, now I decide to challenge them, saying, listen, I can fight you and I can beat you. Now, if any common man can fight the warriors and win, that means that the king is weak. Okay, that's what it basically meant. Why was this ritual done? To show the power. Okay, this entire thing, Ashwamedha Yaga, was done to show the power of the king. Okay, and that nobody can defeat the king's warriors. Okay, and that was the meaning of the Ashwamedha Yaga. Now, if that horse and the warriors, if they went all over the country and they survived, okay, they went all over the country and they survived, And when they came back, the horse would be sacrificed. Okay. And at that time, they would say that there is nobody who is stronger than the king. Okay. This will prove the power of the king and that nobody can defeat the king. Okay. And in that name, the horse was sacrificed. Okay. And this is the ritual of Ashwamedha Yaga. And who started this? It was Samudragupta. Okay. So these are the 4 points we have learned under Samudragupta. Under Chandragupta the second, you need to remember, firstly, he was the son of Samudragupta. Okay. He defeated the satraps of Gujarat. You need to remember that Samudragupta actually conquered a big area. Yes. Samudragupta defeated 9 kings in North India and 12 kings in South India. Samudragupta was not able to defeat the satraps of Gujarat, but who defeated them? It was Chandragupta the second. Okay. So if you see under Chandragupta, he was the son of Samudragupta. He defeated the satraps of Gujarat and he was given the title of Vikram Aditya. Okay, he was given the title of Vikram Aditya. Now, this title of Vikram Aditya is normally given to people who are very, very good in war. Okay, so that was the title given to Chandragupta the second. Okay, now I don't want you to delve deeper into any of these right now. Stick to your portion, do this much, and also if there's any part of the video which you have not understood, go back. Okay, go back, rewind, take your time with the video and understand each of these things. Learn how to write each of these points. Okay, don't just learn orally. Learn how to write, because you are going to have to write in your exam and you are going to have to write the correct spellings. Okay, under the Guptas, now there was a lot of progress that was made. Progress means growth. Okay. Now, India as a country grew a lot under the Gupta dynasty. Okay. And that is why the Gupta dynasty was called the golden age of India. The Gupta dynasty was called the golden age of India. Now, if you look at the question on top, why is the Gupta period known as the golden era of India? That is the question given. During the Gupta period, a lot of importance was given to what? It was given to knowledge, mathematics, astronomy, medicine, and poetry. So a lot of importance was given to all of these different things. Because the importance was given, the rulers used to be, the rulers actually used to give a lot of money to people who would research medicine, poetry, maths, astronomy. They would give them money to research. Okay. And because of that, during this time, in the Gupta period, there was a lot of growth that happened in India. And that is why Gupta dynasty is called the golden era of India. Okay. There are 3 things that we will discuss in the golden age of India. Okay. First thing will be literature. Second thing will be architecture. And the last thing will be science. Okay. Literature, like I've already told you, is writing. Architecture is anything that is made, built. Okay. And science you all already know, is something that we will discuss a little bit later. Okay. Literature. Okay. Under the golden age, under the Gupta period, there were 4 people who were very famous for their writing work. Okay. There was a famous poet called Kalidasa, who you all will know in regard to the Mahabharata. Okay. So he wrote the Abhijnana Shakuntala. Okay. So Kalidasa wrote the Abhijnana Shakuntala. For each of these writers, the writer's name is given and the book's name is given. Okay. Like for the first one, it is Kalidasa, who was the poet, and Abhijnana Shakuntala was the play that he had written. Okay. So just keep in mind, first is the writer, then is the book. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Second one is Shudraka. Okay. And he wrote the Richa Katika. If you see that M is silent. Okay. This M is silent. Okay. So Shudraka actually wrote the Richa Katika. Okay. The Vishaka Datta wrote the Mudra Rakshasa, and Vishnu Sharma wrote the Panchatantra. Okay. I understand that all of these names of the writers as well as the books are a little complex, but I need you to practice the spelling either 5 or 10 times so that you can get the correct spelling in the exam. Okay. A possible question could be where I could say, Can you name the four important scholars or the literatures of the Gupta period? Yes, you could have to say all four names, or I could give you Shudraka wrote which book? Yes, Shudraka wrote which book? Shudraka wrote the book Richa Katika. Okay, so you will have to remember which writer wrote which book as well. Okay, let's quickly move to architecture. Under architecture, there were many things that were built during the Gupta period. What were they? The Dhamek Stupa. Okay, if you remember, don't get confused with the other stupa. Okay, Purushapura Stupa was made under the Kushana period. That was 400 feet high. The Dhamek Stupa was made under the Gupta period. It was 128 feet tall. Okay, difference. Don't get confused. Okay, temple at Sanchi. Okay, remember that this is the temple at Sanchi. Temple at Sanchi was made in the Gupta period. The Sanchi Stupa was made under the Mauryan period. Okay, so again, don't get confused between the Mauryan period and this one. Sanchi Stupa was made in Mauryan period. Temple at Sanchi was made during Gupta period. Okay, the third one, rock cut caves of Ellora and Ajanta. Okay, if you remember, I had shown you a lot of pictures in regard to each of these caves and how all of the caves actually show the religions of Jainism and Buddhism inside. There are full, there are carvings, and there are carvings on the pillars, and there are idols kept. Okay. There are sculptures made of Gautama Buddha. Okay. All of these things are found where? In the rock cut caves of Ellora and Ajanta. These are the different things that were made during the time of the Gupta period. Firstly is the Dhamek Stupa. Next one is the temple at Sanchi. And the last one is the rock cut caves of Ellora and Ajanta. Let's quickly understand the last part of this video, which is the science. Okay, the science is actually the biggest reason as to why India grew very, very fast. Okay, the first scientist that we will talk about is Aryabhatta. Okay, you would have heard of Aryabhatta, but even if you have not, we will discuss a little bit about what he did. Okay, he had written two books. Aryabhatta wrote two books. He wrote the Arya Siddhanta and he wrote the Arya Bhattiya. Okay, so he wrote two books, the Arya Siddhanta and he wrote Arya Bhattiya. Okay, Aryabhatta actually discovered what? That the earth actually rotates on its axis. Okay, let me actually stop sharing my screen and I will try and show this for you. Okay, let me just clear all my drawings here. Okay, now imagine that this is earth. Okay, imagine that this yellow color thing, a ball is earth. Okay, and let me draw the sun over here. Okay, and yes. Okay, okay. Now imagine the earth as we know now. The earth revolves around the sun. Okay, but who discovered that? It was actually Aryabhatta who discovered that the earth revolves around the sun. Okay, that's the first thing. And he also discovered that the earth rotates. Okay, now imagine something is rotating. If you have seen your top, yes, it will be spinning on one thing this way. That's the same thing that happens with earth as well. Okay, the earth also is spinning like this. Okay, if it is spinning this way, okay, like I already explained to you, the rotation of earth is the reason we have day and night. Okay, it's the reason we have day and night, and these are both facts that Aryabhatta had discovered. Okay, so Aryabhatta discovered two things. Firstly, that the earth rotates on its own axis. Axis is nothing but an imaginary line. It's not a real line, it is an imaginary line. And the second thing, that the earth revolves around the sun, rotates on its axis and revolves around the sun. These are two things that Aryabhatta discovered. The second scientist that we will talk about is Varaha Mihira. Okay, don't get confused with the spelling. Varaha Mihira. Okay, Varaha Mihira, he wrote a book called Pancha Siddhanta. Pancha Siddhantika, sorry, Pancha Siddhantika. And he was the one who discovered that the moon revolves around the earth. Just like the earth revolves around the sun, the moon revolves around what? The earth. Okay. And who discovered that? It was Varaha Mihira. Okay. The last scientist that we will be talking about today, it is actually Brahmagupta. In your other SST chapter, how I had explained to you that after Asia, there is water. Okay. And the world does not end after that. Yes, the world is not flat. Yes, the world will not end after Asia. It will go back to North America. Yes. So that means that the world is round in shape. Yes. And who discovered that? It was actually Brahmagupta. The scientist Brahmagupta under the Gupta period, he was the one who discovered that the world is actually round and not flat. Okay. Now, I want you all to take some time to go through each part of this video. Okay. And when you are revising, keep in mind two things, like I've already told you. Please practice writing and please practice spellings. Okay. Because this is important for your exam. Okay. And I hope this video helps you. Please go through all the summary sheets properly, go through the historical timeline properly, and go through both the videos. But before you do this video, go through the Mauryan Dynasty video. Okay. Thank you.